Welcome back to the Digital Ledger channel, everybody. I wanted to put together a quick video, and this time it is about gold versus Bitcoin, which was done by Business Insider. Shout out to them, and shout out to Jim Rickards, who I absolutely love his insight. This is a gold bug, world-renowned economist, world-renowned book author, gold investor, and just all-around smart guy. Okay, so basically what I want to do is lay this out. I want to give you his thoughts here in this little 5-minute clip. It is an excellent clip, and he lays down the difference for him between gold and Bitcoin. And I'll tell you something, it's pretty remarkable to hear him lay it down so straightforward. Like I said, really appreciate his insight. I've reached out to him with a comment because I have something I'm going to follow this video up with. It's an article who was brought to us by XRP Chinchilla. Thank you, XRP Chinchilla. We'll talk about this also because this is an interesting, I guess not a rebuttal, but an interesting extension of the point that Jim is making here. Okay, let's go ahead and listen to this clip really quickly here.
Intelligence. I want to talk today about gold versus Bitcoin. It's a very popular debate. I'm happy to say that gold and Bitcoin are both forms of money, but it's a liquidity preference. Which do you prefer in a crisis?
That's a very big point right there. Let's listen to this.
So we've been talking a lot about gold versus Bitcoin. Everybody has. You love gold. How do you feel about Bitcoin? How do the two compare?
Personally, I'm very skeptical of Bitcoin. I know what the price action is. It's going up, but 10% a day at this point. Look, Bitcoin could go to 20,000. It could go to 30,000. It's on its way to zero, somewhere between 0 and 200. It's a utility token for criminals, terrorists, money launderers, tax evaders. They'll always find some use for it, so it may not go all the way to zero. It's clearly a bubble. It looks like the second biggest bubble in history after Tulip Mania, although at the rate it's going, it'll pass Tulip Mania, in a matter of days. Bigger than the South Sea bubble, bigger than the Mississippi bubble, the New York, the Dow Jones in 1929, Nikkei in 1989. Name your bubble, it's bigger than all of them. So I don't own any. I don't recommend it to clients. But I'm a free market guy. If people want to buy it, knock yourself out.
And why are you skeptical of the price transactions?
A couple of reasons. Number one, there's pretty good evidence that there's a lot of fraud going on. Look, every market in the world, gold, silver, stocks, bonds, LIBOR, exchange, every market, you name it, they've all been subject to manipulation. That's why we have all these regulators. That's why we have the SEC, and that's why the stock exchange are regulated, et cetera. Are we supposed to believe that Bitcoin is the only market in history that's not manipulated? That's nonsense. Of course it is. In fact, the fact that it's unregulated is a magnet for all the manipulators who probably were, the Wolf of Wall Street, 20 years ago. So the point is, imagine the following. You and I are Bitcoin miners, right? So I sell to you at 10,000, you sell back to me at 10,100, I sell back to you at 10,200. We just traded back and forth all day. There's no P&L. We're trading the same Bitcoin back and forth, but it's called painting the tape. These exchanges get reported on the Bitcoin exchanges, so an outsider who's completely naive about this is, oh, look, the price is going up. It's just you and me painting the tape. It's the oldest, the oldest fraud in the book. It's called a ramp, or whatever you want to call it. But the point is that brings in the suckers from the sidelines, and then they buy it. And of course, what do we care? We're miners. So the costs are going up very steeply, by the way. This thing is completely non-sustainable. There have been the amount of electricity power. The reason the Bitcoin miners are in China is because they burn coal, pollute the air, and have subsidized electricity. Or they're in Iceland because it's so cold, it reduces their cooling costs for all the computing power. Right now, they're using Bitcoin miners every year using as much electricity as the country of Nigeria, a country of 90 million people.
Wow.
Before long, they'll be using as much as Japan, third largest economy in the world. That's not going to happen. You can say that's a simple extrapolation, but there's no way the Bitcoin industry is going to be allowed to use as much electricity as the country of Japan. But that's how much you need to mine the Bitcoin. So they're going to hit a wall in terms of total Bitcoin output. At that point, the miners have no incentive to mine. So who's going to validate the blockchain? Are they going to charge a fee? Well, fine. That sounds like Wells Fargo. That's what banks do. So where's the advantage at the end of the day?
Boom. I got to tell you, Jim Rickards is just dropping it like it's hot. I mean, that is a remarkable breakdown. And I don't mean to, expand on the notion of kicking Bitcoin in the teeth here, but these are real facts. Real facts, like them or not. So there's a lot of things in here. One, he mentioned Tulip Mania. Now, Tulip Mania was back in the 1600s, and it basically was generally the first recorded bubble, financial bubble that happened, which there was contract prices for some tulip bulbs that were recently introduced at the time and fashionable. Tulip reached an extraordinary high levels and then dramatically collapsed in 1637. Like I said, it's like the first pretty much generally speculative recorded bubble that existed, and it's referred to now when you're referencing a bubble in something. So he sees the same thing here. And listen, I mean, whether you look, I'm gonna be perfectly honest. You know, me and Mrs. Backup have a little Bitcoin in our portfolio, and you know, it's concerning. It's not enough to change my life, but impact it maybe. But nevertheless, I mean, an investment is an investment. And these are things that I have to listen to. You know, I'm not always looking for just fundamentals that make me feel good. You know, it's important to understand we're looking for fundamentals that are fundamentals. Fundamentals can make you not feel good. And I tell you, there is a real serious list of things here that he's talking about with the electricity output, and soon to be in pace with electricity same output as Japan, and already as far as pacing Nigeria. 90 million people live in Nigeria. You know, it is not a subject that you can brush over. In fact, Chris Larson recently in the podcast that they launched with Ripple made this very point about being energy efficient. In fact, if I go a little further down, excuse me, into here, there's also a post that just came out that I recently shared. And let me see if I can find this very quickly. That talks about XRP is 10 million times more cost efficient than Bitcoin. It's unbelievable the difference in the two. And let me see if I can just find that tweet, because I've shared a lot of things this morning. But let's see if I can find that really quickly here. All right. XRP enables faster, low-cost exchange transfers. That was a great article too. I'm looking for it here, and I don't quite see it this second, and I didn't have it pulled up ready to go. But nevertheless, it was just recently reported that XRP is 10 million times more cost efficient than Bitcoin. That is remarkable. Just on a cost efficiency. Oh, here it is. Yeah, there's the CO2 footprint. Excuse me. From Peter Vass. Thank you, Peter Vass. Time for the world to know CO2 footprint of Ripple is XRP 10 million times lower than Bitcoin. The carbon footprint, excuse me. That is remarkable. Now, if we keep going to the notion, you know, he's talking about Bitcoin. He's talking about the greater fool theory. He's talking about a bubble created. You and I buy it, and then we hope other people come in and just continue to buy it. And he makes a very valid point there, because Bitcoin, not to beat it up, but in full disclosure, came out and pushed itself as a currency when it failed at that first attempt. It retreated to a store of value, which it currently is right now. They're working feverishly to get the Lightning Network to be able to turn it back into a currency again, because they want to be able to have the speed of transaction, hopefully increasing the purchasing power of it. And then by that way, over terms of time, they can calm the volatility of Bitcoin and use it again as a currency. Now, it doesn't mean that they won't do it, and certainly in some places of the world are doing it right now. However, you know, if you hold Bitcoin today, and let's say it's $9,500 or $700, in fact, we'll look at the real price right now. Let's just see exactly what it is. It's $9,369.64. And let's say that you bought something that was $9,500 yesterday, and you paid $9,500 for it because yesterday Bitcoin was $9,500. The person that you paid that Bitcoin has lost $200. That does not a currency make. I'm not saying it can't climb the mountain. I'm not saying it can't get over the hurdles, but I am saying it's a problem. Let me tell you what else is a problem, too, that Jim didn't happen to touch on, is the idea and notion that governments may make private gold ownership illegal. There's one I'd like Jim to field. I've actually sent that comment out on Twitter, and I hope for his response. I don't say it in spite of hoping Bitcoin does well. I think Bitcoin will have a long-term life. I think it has some hurdles to be dealt with, and I think Jim does an eloquent job of laying out exactly what they are. However, history has also told us something about gold. In 1933, it was confiscated from private ownership here in the United States. And the question has recently come up again, courtesy to XRP Chinchilla, for throwing this argument out here about Crispin O'Day, one of Europe's highest profile hedge fund managers, said that governments may ban private gold ownership if they lose control of inflation in the wake of the pandemic. Huh. How about that? You know, to that point, I have to say, to that exact point, Jim Rickards has also talked many times about the notion that gold needs to be repriced at $10,000 or $14,000 in order to be able to help the governments of the world get out of the hole that they've dug for themselves. In closing, I don't know what will happen. I'm not trying to be an alarmist. All I really wanted to do was point out the excellent points that Jim made about Bitcoin, because they are excellent points. And I also wanted to bring up the question about gold, because history has told us that they have confiscated gold and made it illegal for private people, citizens, to hold gold before in history. Will they do it again? I don't know. I don't personally think so. But I just felt like after watching this clip that it was at least fair enough to come out and ask the question, because gold has certainly been revered as money throughout the world since the beginning of man. And I believe that it will remain money to the world. However, there are some downsides to gold as well. And I just want to bring that full scope of question to the conversation and hope that we get a response from Jim Rickards. One thing I do know is that the crypto space is gearing up to be the biggest thing and the biggest financial paradigm shift that we have ever seen in the history of mankind, gold included. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for me. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe if you like the content. Please ask that you share, and we will see you on the next one. Take care.